So what is the purpose of our human life? According to Vedanta, the world's oldest system of spiritual philosophy from the Vedas, which have given us yoga and Ayurveda, the purpose of our human life is to realize our godhood. We are able to do this by exhausting all of our desires. Desire is actually personified in all of the world's traditions of religion as the demon that stands in a human being's way to really realize the truth and the spiritual essence of who we really are. In Islam, desire is personified as Shaitan, in Christianity as Satan, in Buddhism it's called Mara, and in Hinduism it's known as Asura. There are three main types of desires that really block us from realizing the fullest potential that we have. The first type of desire are the physical body-based desires. When we have an overwhelming desire for achieving a certain look, or we are really exerting ourselves too hard physically in our exercise routine or the gym or even yoga for that matter, we are having some body-based desires. Body-based desires can also show up in food addictions. They can manifest in sexual addictions. Body-based desires are really what cause a person to also discriminate against another person or another whole group of people on the basis of the color of their skin. It's when we really identify our value as well as the value of other people as being connected to the physical body that the body becomes a real obstacle to realizing our spiritual essence. We all will deal with all of these desires to varying or greater or lesser degrees. In my personal life, I had a lot of body-based issues when I struggled with eating disorders. It wasn't really about the body for me as much as it was about a really deep suppression of emotions that needed to be experienced and ultimately felt so that they could be released. When I was able to start to handle my emotions in a better way and to feel a lot calmer emotionally with the Ayurveda lifestyle in particular, I was able to overcome those body-based desires because my body no longer was an obstacle preventing me from being free. When I had struggled with eating disorders, it was like I was using my body basically to take out my emotions in an unhealthy way, and then I became obsessed with it. I felt like if there was just one thing I could control, then I would like to be able to control it. And for me, that was food. There was so much that felt really out of control, quite frankly, in my life that I wanted to try to control the uncontrollable, which is the food that we eat and how much we need of it to be able to survive. I wanted to go on the very bare minimum just to prove it kind of to myself that I could do it. Looking back, it's really clear to me how restricting my food intake was so much of a spiritual hunger that actually got expressed in a different way. When I started to learn about Ayurveda, I finally was able to make peace with food and with eating and with my body in a whole different way, where my body became my friend and my vessel and my opportunity, really, when purifying it, to ultimately realize my spiritual essence. Another type of desire are the worldly desires, when all that glitters is actually not gold. When we chase after money, when we're after fame and name and recognition and the next promotion and the next investor and all of these things that come into our lives in our quest for material prosperity, we are actually experiencing a blockage of our spirituality through the world and through worldly acquisitions. It's not just about money though. The worldly desires can also come in the form of an excessive attachment to any kind of thing that gives us emotional security, such as even family members or marriage or pets or whatever it is that makes us kind of feel at home. Possessing properties may be another way that this worldly desire can kind of overcome us, where we're always thinking about what is the next big thing and how do we really make it out there. A lot of this desire is really caught up in people and perceptions. What is that person going to think of me? My value is only there if I have this much money behind me, or if I have, a net worth of such and such number of dollars. It goes down to even simple things like looking for our mom to like what we're wearing one day. It really can be as simple as that, but it becomes so important to us that if we get the approval from our mom or our aunt or whoever it is, then we feel good about ourselves. We feel valuable. We feel maybe even divine. But when we don't receive that, we feel really bad about ourselves. So any kind of approval that is coming from outside, whether it be from another person, a family member, a person you really just want to impress in whatever which way, related to your work, related to attention, even here on Instagram or YouTube or whatever social media you use, it can become a real obstacle. When we get onto a spiritual path, the approval of other people just lowers and lowers and lowers in importance to us, because we ultimately have to find the divine within in order to be able to approve of our own selves. When we are able to do that and really turn in and check in with what is it that we value, then we're able to set some higher values in life and have a higher ideal to be able to strive for. This actually helps us to overcome these kind of desires for approval, for some kind of security that comes from other people and not from our own self. Having a higher ideal in life is such a beautiful thing. And the highest ideal that you can have is self-realization and enlightenment. This doesn't mean you got to give up the quest or stop, hustling or working really hard or stop caring whatsoever about what anybody thinks, because that would also be a little bit unrealistic. We need money to survive. We want to have prosperity. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Ideally, we would want to have these things to be able to share them, to be able to really spread this prosperity or abundance that we have, or the love that we have. Say if we have a lot of love in our family or in our relationships, then how do we really extend that to all beings? That would be a beautiful way to exhaust the kind of obsession for the acquisition and really channel it into something higher. Ultimately, when we completely exhaust the quest for approval, we tap into our deeper reservoirs of creativity and of being able to manifest abundance that comes from within. In the Vedic spiritual tradition, we have so many gods and goddesses, and they are actually representing to us different ideals. In India, a lot of people take the ideal and the idol to be like the ultimate. But actually, the idols and the gods and the goddesses are just symbolizing to us an ideal that we want to strive for. For example, Goddess Lakshmi is representative of wealth. And this is not limited to money. Lakshmi represents the wealth of our character. She represents the wealth of our virtues and of nature and of the whole planet that we live on. She is manifest in all the greenery that we see and in all of the good deeds that we do and in how we try to really benefit others with our thoughts, words, and actions. She is also the beauty of life and all of the different forms that beauty manifests. But the key to really manifesting that is to let go of the desire for it and simply practice what is known as karma yoga in this tradition. Karma yoga means we work simply for the purpose of the work itself. We don't obsess over the outcome or the desire that we're seeking in what we're doing. We're actually training our minds to really just focus upon a higher ideal that we're working for. For example, an ideal would be of working for equality for all. A beautiful ideal would be working for the abundance of all, for the well-being of all, for the liberation of all beings, then we can be doing the exact same actions, but our motivation is very different. It's not a small desire-based motivation. It becomes a bigger thing that's bigger than us and that helps us feel connected to something greater than ourselves, and then ultimately to the divine within ourselves that allows us to really rise above challenges to manifest all of the abundance and the beauty that the world has to offer. The third type of desire on the spiritual path that we have to really destroy is the desire for a mere acquisition of information and knowledge and learning, even of the spiritual kind. I know it may seem really much better to be obsessed with learning everything you can about spirituality, with reading all the spiritual books, with listening to all the lectures, and heck, maybe even giving lectures yourself. It's a lot of fun, after all, to talk. It may feed into the worldly desire for how much attention am I going to get, and fame and recognition for doing what I'm doing. But then it just becomes a hollow quest. And sadly, this is what we see a lot in this world of spirituality. People who who talk the talk, but are not really walking the walk. When we just become obsessed with the words and the information and more in our spiritual journey, then the very desire or obsession with more spiritual knowledge, more information, more mantras, more this, more that, more traditions, more everything, becomes another desire that blocks us from actually embodying spirituality within our being. So in the ancient spiritual texts, they say that obsessing too much even with the texts that you're reading can actually stand in your way of embodying the true spirit of the texts. The texts, the practices, the rituals, the traditions, even all of the beautiful mantras and so many things that we have in all the spiritual traditions are just there to guide us ultimately to that place within where we are connected with that divine within ourselves. In the Vedic spiritual tradition, Goddess Saraswati is the representative of knowledge and wisdom, learning and creativity. When we evoke her, we're able to really, again, have a higher ideal for our pursuit of knowledge, to really learn for the sake of learning, to love knowledge for its own sake and not for any other gain or acquisition that comes from having that. When our quest for knowledge ultimately becomes about how can I really embody my full divinity and exhaust all the other desires, then and then only are we really truly on our path to true peace, to true abundance, to true satisfaction. It doesn't mean if you're on a spiritual path that you have to become a boring wallflower who just sits in the corner and doesn't talk to anybody. Not talking for long periods of time is actually a great thing to do. It is really helpful for people who talk a lot to go within and connect with the inner silence, but it's not required. What's really required is our state of mind in whatever activities we're doing. It's not about what you do in life, it's about how you do it. We can do all of the same actions. We can enjoy all the food, all the clothing, all the music, all the sex, all the good things that the world and life has to offer, but not be desiring over it, not be thinking about it afterwards, and not be obsessed with it. When we are not having a desire for something, then when something is coming naturally to us, organically to us, we can actually enjoy it because we're not obsessing over it. Our mind is not involved in it. Desire has not taken over. Being on a spiritual path does not mean you need to have any less enjoyment of the world, its objects, beings, or things. It simply means where are you in relation to all of these things?